So this season has taught us one thing, and if you look at the two teams in the AFC North that did advance, was that there are two teams here that are young and that have a very bright future and that look to battle over this division for years to come. Yes, Pittsburgh is never out until they're out. We don't know what the deal is with them. Cincinnati, they're on the rise, but I don't know if their rise is going to be high enough to be able to jump with teams like Baltimore and Cleveland. So to help me with this debate, obviously, you guys know where I land on this debate. I'm going to bring in a buddy from AFC North Talk, SZG Sports, to give the Ravens side of this debate. But today we're going to be talking who has the better future, who's in a better situation. Sonny, how you doing today, man?
Oh man, I'm great. I'm happy to be here from AFC North Talk. You know, it's always fun to be here talking to you. So I'm ready, bro.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I'm ready to go here. And I think one of the biggest points of contention here is going to be quarterback. So we're going to make you wait to the end of the video to talk quarterback. But when you talk about the overall situation of this team and what kind of the quarterback situation implies on this team is cap space, right? That's what's kind of looming over both teams' heads. Obviously, both quarterbacks were drafted in the same draft, in the same round, so they have the same contract situation either, but Lamar's a lot cheaper actually than Baker Mayfield right now. So as far as cap situation goes, who do you think has the better situation there, and do you think the Ravens situation is trending up or down in that?
I think both of them have a tough cap situation going forward. The thing is I see it like this. It's funny because both of them will have a tough situation as gonna get paid for both quarterbacks. And I think their contracts will be very similar when they get paid. But right now, both of them, their biggest assets on money-wise are in different spots. Meaning the Browns defense, their big assets is Garrett, right? You paid him already. Other than Garrett, nobody's getting paid. And then on offense for the Baltimore Ravens, Ronnie Stanley is our biggest asset, right? After Ronnie Stanley, nobody's getting paid either. So defensively, that's where Baltimore has all the money, right? Humphrey, Calais Campbell, Big Baby Davis, Peters. So all that money's there. And the same thing is for Cleveland, right? So obviously, as they go forward, this is going to be a pure question about GM, right? Which GM can put the best team to fit their needs? And this is something that I tell my guys all the time. Not necessarily the best player for Cleveland is going to be the best player for Baltimore. Good example would be Landier, I think, will be a good player in both systems. But even if you think about a guy like Marquise Brown in Baltimore works okay. And with Cleveland, he might be better. In Baltimore, he's okay, right? So it all depends what player. And that is on the GM. The GM needs to figure out, because as your cap gets tighter, those draft picks are crucial. You can't be missing too many, because as you miss a lot of them, then you become the Texans. Very expensive quarterback, nothing else to show for.
Yeah, and it's also a situation here when you look at Cleveland. I feel like Cleveland's in a really good situation for the next 2 years, and this is what they've kind of been building towards, right? That these next 2 seasons would be their Super Bowl window, per se, for Baker's rookie year at least, right? Yeah. Where you have literally the whole offensive line is under control until all under control next year, and then you have Wyatt Teller, who you can give an extension to the year after. You have the 2 running backs under control for the next same situation, right? You have Kareem Hunt next 2 years. Nick Chubb is guaranteed for next year. You might have to franchise tag him or extend him the year after that to make sure you have him for those 2 years. They'll do something along those lines. Wide receivers, everybody's taken care of. Everybody is handled. Odell is on pretty reasonable money for a wide receiver. Jarvis is on okay money for a wide receiver, but they're all kind of taken care of on that side. Tight end, obviously, everybody's there except for David Njoku, who is a kind of accessory piece, but he's even going to be here through next season because they did take the 5th-year option on him. And then you go on the defensive side of the ball, and you're right? The Browns have definitely put an emphasis on that offense, right? That's where they're building. The Ravens have built all on their defense. It's 2 different philosophies. As locked up as the Browns offense is, the Ravens defense is unsure as the Ravens offense is. Same thing for the Browns defense. Yes, you have your two anchors, right? You have your Denzel Ward, who's going to be he's on the same deal as Baker, and Myles Garrett. You have him locked up. You just extended him last summer, and with pretty decent money for a guy who can play as well as he does and commands the amount of attention that he does. Like, you know, he's only like $25 million, and that's like, I know only $25 million, but he obviously could have reset the market if he would have went this year. So, you know, you're talking about, okay, now you have the pieces around him. There are some rooms to get a little cute with the cap here for the Browns defense, right? Sheldon Richardson's getting paid a lot of money towards the end of his career. I could see them either restructuring or ending that deal because he's plus $10 million. Olivier Vernon, he's gone. Like, he tore his Achilles at the end, he's gone. Like, you know, I know it's not sympathetic, but he's no way he comes back at that cap number. And his deal was due after this year anyways. Your linebackers are going to be pretty cheap. Malcolm Smith, BJ Goodson, you're talking about sub $5 million players there. And in the safety situation, this is where it can get expensive for the Browns. And this is where, with Browns fans, I try to tell them, like, I get everybody wants to go Justin Simmons. I get everybody wants to go Anthony Harris, right? Get the big solution. Stop playing around. Fix the safety position. But my issue with that is that you have Grant Delpit on the roster, who is supposed to be the answer. And with Grant Delpit, he's not going to be back till late August, right? During training camp, because he tore his Achilles. And that's a hopeful estimate, right? That's just 1 year from when he tore it. So given that, you're not even going to know before the season starts if he's still Grant Delpit, where he's at. Now, we've seen some great things in the NBA with guys coming like John Wall, somebody who's had a good year off an Achilles. We're seeing Kevin Durant still look like Kevin Durant, but football, we have not seen that yet, even though young players tend to be able to heal from that less catastrophically. But you have a solution there in Grant Delpit. That means you're probably not going to spend $20 million on a free safety, but you are in win now mode. If this Browns team had went 6-10 last year, the answer would be easy. Let's see what we got with Grant Delpit. But since this Browns team went 11-5, went to the divisional round, it's like, ooh, do you go with Marcus Williams or Marcus May and maybe try to fill that need with $12 million a year and then see what you got with Grant Delpit? So that way you're not stuck with Andrew Sadejo out there or a Grant Delpit who's not being able to contribute at the high level. Do you just stick with them? That's the big dilemma that Andrew Berry is. And given his history, I feel like he's leaning more towards just sticking with Grant Delpit, because if you look at how he's handled any injury on this team, it's been, I'll stick with the guys I have on the roster. He didn't sign anybody to replace Billings when Billings opted out. He didn't sign anybody to replace Odell when Odell got injured. So I feel like that's the direction he's going to go. But that's a crucial question, right? Because safety was a big issue. DB depth, I feel like they're going to be able to handle that in the offseason and in the draft, right? That's somewhere where your depth is an issue, but it's not really your top players there. Terrence Mitchell is fine. Denzel Ward is fine. You just need more corners in there. Maybe get a Mike Hilton or what's his name, Desmond King in free agency, who will be under $10 million kind of signings there. So you can do those things. That's the biggest issue with the Browns defense is safety, and it's just not a clear-cut answer. Like, if it were just sign Anthony Harris, we'd be in a simpler situation. If it were just wait till Grant Delpit gets back from an ACL, we'd be in a much simpler situation. But because it's an Achilles, and because he is supposed to be as good as he is, or was as good as he was at LSU, second-round pick you invested in, it makes it such a tricky situation for the Cleveland Browns there. Yeah. So I would say Baltimore might be in a better cap situation for the next 2 years just because their offense is what they're worried about. And ultimately, their offense is where they have their best player. So, you know, the Browns, I feel like their best player might be Miles, but like it's not as big as a leap as it is with Lamar being the best player on the Ravens and everybody else on that team. You know, Baker is really good too. Nick Chubb is really good too. Jarvis is really good. Like, yes, Miles is a game changer on that side, but those guys show up on the offensive side all the time as well. So it's like, I feel like the need there for the weakness, offense or defense, is much more prevalent for the Browns defense. As we saw, you know, Chad Henne getting that 15-yard scramble in the division round ended up biting you in the butt.
Yeah, I will say for the Browns, if I think about the Browns at this point, so right now, the cap, right now, this is from over the cap, right? They saying with a, what is 180? Is no 195, almost 196 is what they're predicting. I'm hoping it's that, but if it is 180, as people are saying, the cap for the Browns for next year is tight. If it is 195 or 196, they're saying you have 18 mil. The problem with a guy with like Simmons is well, there's no problem per se as the player. Dude is a hell of a player, but literally, you at that point you have to cut your losses with Delpit because Delpit cannot be a strong safety. Delpit, this problem was tackling. So
Hmm.
he's a free safety, and that's what Simmons does great, which is very hard to find a good free safety. So if you go with Simmons, he's still young. At that point, you basically are saying, Delpit, you're here for depth. And the problem with Delpit, again, tackling was the problem, and special teams, that's a problem. So Delpit has a very unique case. He was a good fielder in LSU. The depth, I think King is going to be more. I think King is going to be probably around 12 is what I'm thinking. He's going to command between 10 and 12. But that's actually a good signing that I think the Browns should jump into it. It can be a starting corner opposite to Denzel Ward. There at that point with Greedy, I'm not convinced with Greedy. So you can put Greedy as your third corner, the guy from the outside. And I think that is a better situation. If now the coaches should know what to expect for Delpit. If you see the Browns going strong for a free safety, that means that they're either think Delpit is not progressing well on the injury, or they're not completely sold on what he can do in the NFL.
Hmm.
But again, I like the Delpit draft pick. I'm on record saying like, man, that was a great pick for the Browns in the second round. Great value, great pick. I thought it was perfect. Obviously, the dude got an injury. Shit happens. I mean, what you can do. But I think that was good. I think on offense, the Browns don't need to do much, if anything, going to the next season. Yes, you can add a player here, player there for depth. You're adding Odell, right? Because Odell
Hmm.
was out earlier in the year. The first quarter of the season, he got lost. So you're adding a player. And after that, I mean, you have your two running backs, you have your O line, you have your tight end, and Joku's there, and you can probably be a cheap tight end if you want. That is a more of a blocking tight end if you want. That's a TE3, and the receivers. I guess offensively, you don't have to do anything, so you can take any cap that you have. Again, I think everybody's waiting right now. What is going to be a cap number? But you can wait onto that and just put it on the holes on defense. Even if it is depth, you can never have enough corners. If I think about the Ravens need a lot of stuff on offense. So the Ravens have a holes on a couple places. If we're gonna talk just about offense, receivers, and the problem with the Ravens receivers is the Ravens cannot draft receivers. We are horrible, historically bad drafting receivers. The best receiver that we drafted was Torrey Smith, and we let him go. That was literally that I can remember the best one we had, and guy that produced, he was good, especially drawing PIs. And tight ends, we need more. Ravens are pretty good drafting tight ends, I will say. I think all the tight ends we have, they have been good for us from the top heaps. Pitta, Andrews now. Hurst didn't fit this offense, but didn't mean that he was a bad tight end. He went to Atlanta. He thrived in Atlanta, right? He's thriving in Atlanta. So the Ravens, I think they're a good situation with a tight end. So receiver for the Ravens is key. Also, the line. We have our bookends, right? Orlando Brown Jr. played great on the left tackle, right tackle. I have been floating the idea that maybe we need to trade Orlando Brown Jr. because I don't know if we can pay him. If we cannot pay him, he showed that he can play left and right, so he can be expensive out there in the trading market. We might get a first and a second, maybe two first. I don't know. But that obviously weakens your O-line. Your center is a problem. So we need a center this year moving forward. Your guards, I think, are quasi good. The left guard, I'm not in love with, but he seems to be a favorite of the coach. And the right guard, it was a guy that only started at the back end of the year because we had so many injuries during the off the line. But he held his own. He played really good. So I'm excited to see him playing more in the right guard position. But the Ravens have problems in the skill position. Again, receivers, we need more tight ends. And on defense, the defense for the Ravens is pretty set. Like, I think the Ravens could potentially have the best cornerback room. We had a lot of injuries throughout the year, but you saw that they got healthy at the right time. In the playoffs, they just played really good defensively in the 2 games that they had. But outside backers, all our outside backers minus one. There was one was inactive during the later part of the year. Our free agents, Matt Judon, Yannick Ngakwe, yeah. So that is problematic. I would say the Ravens have not been successful drafting a impactful outside linebacker. Judon is a good outside linebacker. Is he impactful? Well, and it's hard to draft an impactful outside linebacker when you're always been picking the top 15 and above, right? It's very hard. The Steelers got away with that with TJ Watt. But other than TJ Watt, tell me there's not that many that you draft in the 16th, 17th, and 18th. So it's a problem in that per se for the outside backer position. But they don't have a lot of money to say, hey, yes, let's bring a free agents. I think this is why the Ravens are probably going to draft and grab potentially veterans. They're just looking to make a play for a year or two and keep doing the whole blitzing and just manning up. Wink, like I said, the corners have been playing well through that. Yes, you will get burned here or there, but for the most part, the corners right now, they're young enough they can still play like that. So those are the positions that the Ravens are. The cap situation, again, depending how they are, I think the Ravens right now have a little bit more cap. If I check, let me see. You have 18 for the Browns, and the Ravens have 14. So no, they essentially have the same type of cap room. So it's gonna be interesting. Definitely gonna be interesting, and I think both. To be honest, Quincy, as we move forward, you will see is drafting it will be the key. If your GM draft better for your scheme, your team will take off, especially
also,
the quarterback.
Yeah, and also one of the things that like people don't talk about, like when we get excited about cap space on teams like this that are like fringe good, like fringe to like being to that next level, like they're trying to take that next step. It can be a gift and a curse, right? Because some you like fans always look at it as the gift, but the curse is like, hey, we're gonna go all in on we're gonna go all in, get this free agent, and we're gonna put it all on this dude to help us make the step. You know, like how I don't know where you're at, but how some Raven fans feel about like an Allen Robinson or somebody like that, where like, hey, we're gonna put all this money on him, let's do it, we'll fix our big hole, and that's gonna fix the team. Where it's like with me, and I know I take a more pragmatic approach to things. It's just like, well, I don't know if that 20 million is going to be spent its best there. You want to have like 10 million every year to have some like flexibility, whether you need to make some moves or not. You want to be able to bring in veterans who can step in and plug holes, and do things. You don't want to just rely on, hey man, we're going to bring in Jadeveon Clowney. Hey man, we're going to bring in all these guys. Like that's why vets on minimum deals are such a big deal now, right? That's what the Ravens have thrived off of for years. Getting guys at the end of their career that can step in and take roles here. And I think once you get here, you kind of get less excited, right? The better your team is, the less excited you are about day one of free agency, right?
Yeah, that's what's the Ravens.
The day one of free agency, okay, whatever. Day two, we getting interested. Day three till training camp, that's where it gets real. That's where you make it real.
The sales.
You're trying to see like, oh, who didn't get signed yet? Who's still available that didn't think they'd be available? Who has a terrible agent and has forced himself into a bad situation? Who can you get that extra investment on? So for Browns fans, I think this is a new adjustment for us, right? Because we're still looking at day one of free agency type stuff, but day one's going to be not important, a non-factor for you. Don't really want it to be a huge factor because you're already going to be locked up with Baker Mayfield. You're already going to be locked up with Nick Chubb. You're already going to be locked up with Denzel Ward in the future. You're already locked up with Myles Garrett. You're going to be locked up with Denzel Ward. Like you have a ton. This team's so young that in a couple of years, you're going to have a ton of players that you're going to have to give money to. But those guys you can get on 1 or 2 year deals, the prove it deal guys, those are the guys to get excited about. That's day 3 of free agency. Yeah. But now that we're talking about youth, an area in which I feel like the Browns do have the advantage over the Ravens is youth, because this is one of the youngest teams in the NFL. You look at some of the Ravens' key players, and yeah, they definitely have young key players, right? Like Marlon Humphreys is extremely young. Rodney Stanley is young, even though he's just coming off an injury. Orlando Brown, obviously young. Lamar Jackson is younger than Baker Mayfield, even though he went in the same class. They have youth there, so this isn't an absence of youth, but they also are relying on some older players. Jimmy Smith, I don't know if he comes back next year, but he's older.
1 year.
He's older now. Marcus Peters, he's not old, but he's getting up there in age. Calais Campbell is somebody you have to worry about, like, ooh, that cliff can come during that contract. You have some Brandon Williams is a guy who's getting up there in age a little bit. So you have some guys there. You got Patrick Queen who could step up and make up for some of these factors. You have, I don't know if they're really sold on their back end solution, even though they end up costing them this year with Clark and Deshaun Elliott, but even Chuck Clark's going to come up for a contract here soon, right? Because he's a 3rd round pick or 4th round pick, so he's got to be up in like a couple of years or a year or two. So, even then, like the Ravens have some issues with age, not massive, and we're splitting hairs at this level. Where the Browns, like, you got Sheldon Richardson, but that can end up being a positive because you can lose that cap hit and bring in more guys for what is like a $13 million cap hit there. Olivier Vernon's going to be gone. That might have been the oldest player on the defense. And then the offense is just like Case Keenum's the oldest guy, obviously, because he's Case Keenum. Exactly. But other than that, everybody is extremely young on this offense. You talk about Jarvis Landry feeling like he's a veteran. He's like 28. You know what I mean? So your oldest guys are like still extremely young. Odell's with 26, 27 now. Baker's young. Baker's 26. Everybody's kind of sub 20, sub 30 on the offense, except for Joe Bitonio. And then on the defense, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, extremely young. The defense is extremely young, and the players that are old aren't guys you have on big deals. You know what I mean? It's like BJ Goodson or somebody like that, or Malcolm Smith, So I think the Browns are in a good position where they're young enough to where they can continue to grow on their potential, but also young enough to where they have room to bring in older guys, right? Like more older guys, and it not be an issue, right? With overcrowding the locker room. You have room to where you can get a Joe Hayden cheap if he becomes a cap casualty in Pittsburgh, right? Okay, let's bring in Joe Hayden to be a hybrid safety or play like third corner, just whatever. You have room to bring in excess veterans, whereas with the Ravens, they're kind of having to watch their balance there when it comes to young and old. And again, you said drafting is important. Everything, when you sign an older veteran player, that usually comes at the expense of maybe a 5th or 6th round pick that's not going to make the roster now because you have an established vet. And for the Ravens, they might want to watch that balance just a little bit more.
So for me, the Ravens have been notorious for just having this type of balance, and they actually had gone younger with the past couple of years. Marcus Peters is 28. Humphrey is 25. Yes, Jimmy Smith, I think, is 31. He is on a 1-year deal. But yeah, the whole point with bringing Jimmy Smith, he is the backup of the outside corners, because the theory is having Tavis Young. Now, Young hasn't been healthy in the past couple of years. He's an excellent slot corner when he can play. The question is, he can play. If he's back next year, which is the hope, the Ravens add to that corner depth. In the case of the backup on the safety side, you had Deshaun Elliott. He was a 6th-round pick. He's in his 3rd year, so he's going to his last year of the deal. Also, Chuck Clark, they already extend Clark, but he's also coming to his last year. Chuck Clark was a 5th-round pick 4 years ago. I think he is, At first 3 years, he spent it like in special teams and as a backup safety. Because we had a Tony Jefferson, and then when Tony Jefferson left, he stepped up. And I think Clark might be signed for next year and maybe an extra year. I will have to double check on that. The defensive side, where we had the older gentlemen, are in the D-line, right? Calais Campbell, Brandon Williams, and if we bring Wolf or not, we'll see. I love how Wolf play. I wouldn't overpay for him because Matabike, I know you liked him from last year. He actually played extremely good when he had the opportunities. But the Ravens are also a team that they just rotate that D-line like as a carousel. So they like to have more people. So Matabike was there. He can step up. Obviously, he will be his 2nd year. That will be young. Outside backer, Perel McPhee was a very old guy. We had him in our first Super Bowl run. So, it's been a minute with him. But I think he brings a lot of value to this team, especially he will be a guy that you sign as a vet minimal. He gives you between 20 and 25 snaps. And then outside backers, again, we have one under contract where he is in his rookie year, but nobody else. So that's interesting. And if I think on the offensive side, the O-line, Stanley is the oldest guy in the O-line, and he is his 5th year. After that, the left guard is in his 4th year now. The center that we're currently having he is in his 3rd year. Right guard is in his 2nd year, and Orlando Brown Jr., right tackle, is in his 3rd year. Receivers are young because Willie Snead right now is not on their contract either. So all the receivers are on the rookie contract. Lamar's on the rookie contract. Both running backs are on a rookie contract. Our offense, other than Stanley, literally when I said other than Stanley, nobody's getting paid. Stanley's the only one that doesn't have a rookie deal from the starting offense. The rest are all rookie deals. All this money that we have spent is literally basically corners, because Kevin Young's getting paid. Peters is getting paid, and Humphrey's getting paid, right? And then the D linemen, because Big Baby and Calais Campbell are also getting paid. So the Ravens need to help Lamar and investing in the offense. The whole Allen Robinson, because I know Quincy doesn't like Allen Robinson. I love Allen Robinson. Now, there's a legitimate argument to be said, investing a player and giving him that much money, if he is not an instant fit, it's a problem. Now, I have been on the record saying I would prefer, now if you bring me Allen Robinson, I'm gonna get ecstatic. But give me AJ Green in a combination with Zach Ertz. Those two are probably cheaper than Mr. Allen Robinson that's going to hit the free agent. See, and I think those are way better fits because AJ Green can be your 50-50, go up top and get the ball. Also, you can have him in limited snaps. And then Zach Ertz is the type of tight end that Lamar likes. It's very similar than what Andrew has, right? So I think he can block. He can be inline blocker. So I think those two in Baltimore would thrive. Those two are not going to cost you as much, I think, as Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson, for those of you that are following Allen Robinson, because I get too many people saying, like, oh, he liked the Ravens tweet. Yeah, he's been liking Ravens tweets. He's been liking Jets tweet. He's looking to see who is opening the bank for me. Yeah. Whoever pays me more. And for you guys, like, no, he was with F that. He was to get paid. Look, I don't fault any player for getting their cake. Anybody, because Quincy, me, we're all going to be trying to get the much money as we can in our respective jobs. So I cannot say to the player, especially going to a 28, his prime, probably his last big contract, hey, hey, can you just slow? No, man, you great, make your money. So instead of paying him that much money, I think if the Ravens can somehow lure AJ Green here, he's probably going to cost between 8 and 10. And Zach Ertz, Philly's cap situation is hell, literally hell. You might be able to have it for a 4th-round pick. And then those two on the offensive side. And then the other thing you have to do is fix your O-line. That could be in combination between draft or a bet that is here or there. I think the solution might be in-house. But still, bringing more depth and competition is never bad. I think both of those teams are very, very young. Like I said, the question, I think it's very little. I know Cleveland on average is a little bit younger, but it might be because we had Calais Campbell. There's 36, I think it is, or 37. So he's probably one of the old. Yeah, he's older. He's probably one of the oldest players right now in the NFL. He's still producing, and he's in his last year of the contract going to next year. So Calais. So the Ravens, one of the things that I see in this draft, which they do a lot, is invest in that D-line with draft picks and see if they can just replace these players with the newer guys. So we'll see. But yeah, the Ravens right now, age-wise, is basically Calais Campbell, Jamie Smith, which is 31, and Big Baby Williams, which is 30.
Yeah. So one of the things I think we touched on, right, is the quarterback situation. Is going to be the last thing we touch on. Now, I would say the argument for Lamar, obviously, he has put together better numbers, obviously, done more in his 3 years than Baker Mayfield has. My thing for why I would think Baker has the better upside is because this year you saw that gap between Baker and Lamar close a lot, right? And that was Baker's first year in this system. Now we're running up against questions in Baltimore with the Greg Roman system, and Lamar has Lamar either outgrown that system or is Greg Roman, is that the system that keeps him up? I think that it's starting to look like Lamar's abilities and the way he has developed is kind of outgrowing a system that has never really changed historically. So you look at somebody who in Baltimore, you can make the argument, might have hit the peak in his current system, while in Baker, on the other hand, is still growing in that system. It looks like it's a good fit for him. You can see where, okay, I think Baker has the better future. And then also you look at how well surrounded Baker is for the next few years in that system. You can argue that Baker has the better future offensively versus Lamar, we just don't know if the issue is more or less Lamar's limitations as a passer, or is Lamar's limitations as a passer being highlighted because of the type of passing offense or lack thereof that he's asked to execute in Baltimore. And it doesn't look like that's changing anytime soon.
Yeah, I think with Lamar and the Ravens offense, that they need to be more balanced. They should be still. You can still be run heavy, just balance a little bit more. Harbaugh addressed that he wants a big body receiver. That's easier said than done. This draft class, again, I'm starting to scout right now. They're really good receivers, not that many big body receivers, but a lot of good receivers. So not necessarily the type of receivers that we need might be in this class. Again, this is why I think they should try to go veteran. The Ravens need to be more balanced, and when I see the Cleveland Browns and Ravens, and this is something that I think both teams are in certain situation. They're different because again, I think the big thing that I saw from Baker's growth, I think it was Stefanski one, right? And none knock on Baker. Baker played great, but Stefanski's one. Second, O line, and I think I know people are saying, Sonny, you always talk about the O line and the AFC North talk, but the O line is so huge. Lamar really doesn't have a lot of investment in the O line, not like Cleveland. So are the Ravens going to invest in the O line? And the O line will help. A lot of the pressures this year came through the middle for Lamar, not necessarily to the edges, through the middle. That middle was soft. Again, we have problems at center. If that is fixed, how's Lamar going to react? How is he going to elevate the game, right? The problem right now is you have two quarterbacks, one where the team invested in the offense, so everything right now is in place for him to thrive, right? And then in Baltimore, like we talk, all the money is invested on the defense, and they're hoping Lamar can just do everything. Well, Lamar is not perfect. Obviously, I talk about his limitations. In my opinion, he's not as accurate as he should. And second, which is the one that drives me more crazy, is anticipation. And
Mhm.
that could be because he doesn't trust his receivers, or that could be that he needs to see the play a little bit more. But that's something that if he doesn't grow out of it, that's going to be problematic in the next couple of years. O line, even if you fix the O line a little bit better, you only give them so much time. Anticipation is key. So the Ravens right now, if you tell me, Sonny, which one looks better in the future, Lamar or Baker? If I just want to say I'm biased, Baker, because Baker right now is set up with the O line. We talk about the O line is fairly young. They're all good. I mean, in the AFC North talk, I said like these might be the best O line, if not second behind Indy. So that is key. Plus, he has the weapons on the receiving side. But even if the weapons are not there, O line is crucial. This is why I go back to Ace back and forth. Like when he talks about, oh, Kyle Pitt or one of the receivers, like Ace, if you don't protect the quarterback, those guys don't matter. Now, if you have the O line, now if your receivers are a little bit subpar, but you get that extra second is huge in the National Football League. So I think that's also what helped back Baker, obviously the running game and all the other stuff that Stefanski put in place. So if you tell me which one will thrive more or less, well, you have to give the notch to Baker. Is Baker better than Lamar? I don't know. I think they're all good in their unique points, but Baker right now is set up in a better place to thrive. These teams now, that doesn't mean the Browns are going to be better than the Ravens. It all depends, right? Again, you're asking a lot from Lamar, which I think is going to shorten his career. But these two teams are basically saying, no, I'm gonna win with defense, and then I'm gonna just run down your throat, and your offense is just gonna panic, right? And I'm gonna make you one dimensional, and that works for the most part in the regular season. In Cleveland, in theory, they're saying like, no, we're gonna take a lead, and if our defense doesn't stop us, that's okay because I can pass, I can run, I can slow the game down if I need to. If I need to go bam, 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 Baker can do it because the O line can protect and I have the receivers. So there's different approach. If you tell me which quarterback might be better, Baker is right now set up in a better situation.
All right. Well, we'll find out. We got a lot of time to talk about this from here until July when we get it all ramped up. A ton of off-season coverage that you're going to see here. But guys, thank you guys for watching for this week. Again, guys, have a great day. Have a good night.